My father-in-law cooked my husband's birthday dinner with peanut oil to prove my anaphylactic allergy was fake. When I refused to eat, he called me dramatic. My husband told me to just eat it. Now my mill is divorcing him and I won't step foot in that house again. Mark's initial reaction was to get defensive about me posting our private business online, but I explained that I needed perspective from people who understood what I was going through. I told him I felt completely alone in this situation and that his response had made me question whether I could trust him to protect me. That seemed to hit him hard. He was quiet for a while, then asked me to explain again exactly what had happened at his dad's house. So I walked through it step by step, emphasizing the part about Dave throwing away Linda's list and his comment about proving my allergy. Mark's face changed when I got to that part. He said, "My mom really said Dad said that?" When I confirmed it, he was quiet for several minutes. Then Mark told me something he'd been holding back. Apparently, after I left that night, there had been a huge argument between Dave and Linda. Linda had been furious when she found out about the peanut oil, and she'd confronted Dave about potentially unaliving me. According to Mark, Dave had laughed it off and said, she would have been fine. People with real allergies don't go around advertising it like she does. Mark said he'd been torn because he didn't want to believe his father could be that callous, but hearing it directly had made him uncomfortable. He admitted he'd been trying to convince himself it was just a misunderstanding because the alternative was too awful to accept. I asked Mark point blank, "Do you believe your father deliberately used peanut oil to test whether my allergy is real?" After a long pause, he said, "I think it's possible. And that scares me." That was the breakthrough I'd been waiting for. Once Mark acknowledged that his father might have intentionally endangered me, the conversation became much more productive. We talked about boundaries and what would need to happen for me to feel safe around Dave again. Mark agreed that I shouldn't have to eat anything Dave prepared until he acknowledged what he'd done and committed to being more careful. We also agreed that Mark would talk to his mother about making sure she supervised any cooking when we visited. Mark called his mom that night to discuss the situation. Linda was still upset about what had happened and assured Mark that she would never let Dave cook for me again without direct supervision. She also said she'd been thinking about Dave's comment and that she was starting to realize he'd been making similar jokes about my allergy for years, comments she dismissed as harmless at the time but now recognized as cruel. The conversation took an interesting turn when Linda mentioned that Dave had been resistant to learning about allergies in general. She said he'd refused to read any of the articles Mark had shared and had made disparaging comments about snowflake generation health issues. Linda admitted she'd been enabling his behavior by not pushing back harder. Mark asked his mother directly whether she thought Dave had used the peanut oil on purpose. Linda was silent for a long time, then said, "I don't want to believe it, but I can't think of any other explanation. He threw away my list, bought something I specifically told him not to buy, and then made that awful comment about proving her allergy. I think he was testing her." Hearing his own mother say that seemed to be the final wake-up call Mark needed. Update 2. The situation with Dave has escalated in ways I never could have predicted. After my last update, Mark decided he needed to confront his father directly about what had happened. He asked me if I wanted to be present for the conversation, but I declined. I felt like this was something Mark needed to handle as his son, and honestly, I didn't trust myself to stay calm if Dave started denying everything. Mark went to his parents' house last Sunday afternoon. According to what he told me afterward, the conversation did not go well. Mark started by telling Dave that I wouldn't be coming to family dinners anymore until they could guarantee my safety. He